Welcome, listeners, to another riveting episode of Eva Talks by 10 Times. Today, we have the pleasure of hosting Nate Nicholson, a distinguished event producer with an impressive 15-year career in event production. Welcome to Eva Talks, Nate. So good to have you here.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
That's great. So, everyone, join us as we dive into the world of event production with Nate, where his insights promise to offer a treasure trove of knowledge for both seasoned professionals and budding enthusiasts. So, Nate, with this, I would like to put up my first question. As an experienced event producer, could you provide our listeners with an overview of your approach to event production from initial concept to execution?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, in my role, usually when I get handed an event, it's been designed. We already know what the overall arching goals are for our clients, and at my point, I take it over to finish the planning. So we'll do discovery. So I'll that includes sitting down with my team, asking lots and lots of questions to get up to speed on where things are at to their point,
Yeah.
then going back to our clients who are planning the event, and we will then do more questions and discovery, just saying, making sure that we haven't made any assumptions. And we get everything clear and out. And then we move on to the planning phase. And really, discovery and planning really intermingle because as you're planning, you find more questions. So you got to go back and do some more discovery. But we do all of that leading up to the event. So that's all of our communication around needs for specific presenters, uh, things that we might need at technology support at registration or out in the non-meeting spaces of the venue. And then so we get all of that wrapped up, a solid plan in place, and then we move into execution, which I think is everybody's favorite part. You know, we jump
Yeah.
on site, we live that excitement and adrenaline for a day, two, a week, depending on the length of the event. And we do our best. We drink a lot of coffee and soda, and we deal with our aching feet toward at the end of every day. But I think we all kind of understand the execution portion. For me, specifically on site, my role turns less technical planning and very much a hospitality customer service. It's almost well, I can almost say it's almost never my house. You know, it's
Yeah.
never our office where we're hosting an event. That happens once a year, but we're always in someone else's space, right? But I try to make it as much, at least in my mind, it is my home. I've done what I can to dress the place up, and I want to be as hospitable to my guests as possible. And my guests include both my client and their guests, right? And then a piece that I really would like to see more and more people do, and we're pushing that here, is a debrief. So after the event's over, maybe we give it a little space depending on the size of the event, what's going on, for everybody to gather all of their data from the event, and let's sit down for half an hour, an hour or more if we can, and really go through what went well, what didn't, what we can do better. Because for us, and for me personally, the most effective we can be is in those longer relationships where we're doing multiple events over multiple
Yes.
years at a time. Because you get to know each other, you get to your teams, even your down to your crew, get to know the client, and are able to provide even greater service because there's institutional knowledge that comes as you plan multiple events together. And so that's really, in a nutshell, the maybe a very large nutshell, how I like to approach events.
That is great. This includes the actual pattern that we always learn. but also how important it is for having a review or a feedback and work for longer partnerships. So, could you share some tips for coordinating the various elements from venue selection to equipment setup to ensure everything runs seamlessly on the day of the event?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this answer is going to sound very maybe cliche
Mm-hmm.
or pithy, but it really does come down to communication.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems really funny in an age where everybody is used to a million text messages and 10,000 emails,
Yeah.
and DMs and every social media platform you can find. But um, in an age where we're inundated with information all the time, it becomes even more important to clearly communicate in an
Mm-hmm.
organized fashion to all of the
Mm-hmm.
people that are the various vendors that are helping with the execution of an event. Internally here, we use on all of our internal emails, everything that we work on is coded with
Mm-hmm.
a particular nomenclature. So every email subject line um, has a code to it that we know references an event that we're working on, so we can easily search in our email what was being done with that event. When our clients, we don't ask them to use our nomenclature. That's for our internal emails and our emails to our vendors. But it's very, very helpful if instead of just a scattershot email blast of like 47 different subject lines that we have to go search through to find that one nugget of information that we're looking for. The more organized those external communications or back and forth emails can be, the better.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, really, I do think the key is the subject line. Our email
Mm-hmm.
clients are so searchable now
Yeah.
that if you can really hone in on how you're going to communicate. So something as simple as just the event name,
Yeah.
and then a hash, and then a subject. We're going to talk
Mm-hmm.
about AV in this room, or this presenter needs whatever that is. Come up with some kind of nomenclature, and then share that. Like, this is how we are organizing our emails. Um, for us, we love to use the what our clients are using. 'Cause it helps us stay organized, it helps them stay organized, and it makes sure that nothing really falls through the cracks.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of tools like Slack, Google
Mm-hmm.
Spaces.
Yeah.
There's Basecamp, a couple of other things like that, where you have that dedicated space to have conversations in a text format. So not everybody gets copied on an email, but you know, it might be good to know, but you can tag somewhere, you can tag people. So it can be as simple as email. It can be as complicated as a massive tech stack. However you choose to communicate, in that, the coordinating of the event, being able to be organized in your communications is probably the number one thing that will help your vendors and your staff execute at a higher level.
Yeah. And what would you say about venue selection? How do you think that venue selection, is there any tips that you have for everyone?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of bringing in your production partner as early as possible. If you choose to use the in-house audiovisual provider,
Mhm.
great. But knowing what you want to accomplish when you're going into your venue selection is a better approach than trying to find a venue and then coming up with something to fit in that venue. If you know what and it goes with any vendor, really, like
Yeah.
your AV production partner, your caterer, your florist, any of those things. If you know what your performance goals are and what your overarching goals are going to be, and how that particular thing affects that,
Mhm. Mhm.
you're going to be a lot more successful and run into a lot less issues during that or after that selection process. Specifically with venues, from a production standpoint, we're always ask a lot of questions. I mean, we're always going to want to know what is the actual ceiling height in the room.
Yeah.
Are there rigging points? What are there
Yeah.
exclusives? Can you get out
Yeah.
of your exclusives? Those are all kinds of things that can be gotchas in the end. And if you have a trusted partner, whether that is a full service production house like us or a
Mhm.
independent, production manager that can come in and consult, bring somebody that has that eye, to the negotiating table, even if they can't do your initial site visit with you. Let them look over your contract and just say, hey, this might need some clarification, because a lot of what I've seen lately is they'll get you to agree to their production guidebook, but then in the production guidebook it lays out a bunch of other things that, like, power costs and internet is variable, and you have to use this, or you have to pay for a liaison if you go out. Yeah, all those fun gotchas that they like to hide. Make sure all that's up front and clear and worked out on the front end,
Yeah.
because it'll make your life a whole lot easier and keep all the
Mhm. Mhm.
surprises at bay.
That's
And I'm
great.
sure that has been
So,
said a lot, but we can't
yes,
say it
of
enough.
course. Yeah, of course. So, Nate, in the era of hybrid events, right, how do you approach
Mhm.
the integration of virtual components to ensure a seamless, engaging experience for both in-person and online attendees? This is
Yeah,
something
and
I would really
that
like
is
to know.
yeah, that's a trick.
Mhm.
The and I will say, it's not one of those problems that I would just say just throw money at it, but
Mhm.
you do have to be intentional, and you have to know what your goal is with that integration. And sometimes that's going to actually cost you some significant budget, Terry, some time. I like to approach those audiences as two separate events, and
Mhm.
then build the bridges between them, because they are two
Mhm.
very, very different experiences.
Yeah,
You're
surely.
and if you it's very, very easy, especially for most of us that have been here for a while, to really focus on the in-person audience, and then the online audience becomes an afterthought. But it's just as easy for the online audience to get all of your attention and then forget about the experience that your in-person folks are getting. And so if you look at those as two separate events,
Mm-hmm.
you know, then it's a lot easier to then find places to bridge than if you try to. I at least from my experience, trying to build those at the same time or in the same function. Um, the you know I think the Tony Robbins guys do this really well. They've built an experience where it's online. For a lot of people, they have that massive LED wall with all the little Hollywood squares of people
Yeah,
on Zoom,
yeah,
right?
that's quite
But they
true.
also have an in-person audience, but they do
Yeah,
a really good job. Um,
yeah,
the other key is especially if you're not going to have separate hosts for the audiences, is to have a host of the event that understands how to address both audiences and tie those together,
yes.
because it
I
really
think
does come
that's
to
very
that
important
personality on
that
stage.
yeah, a great personality, as you said, will definitely affect the total atmosphere of the event that goes through. Because even the most basic events could turn out to be really nice with the right approach of a great host or a moderator. And
Yep.
where there can be scenes where there have been great activities planned, and but it doesn't go well because the coordination wasn't good. So as you said, it's
Yep.
really important to have a great host that could coordinate and engage with both kind of audience. And that's
Yep.
really nice if somebody can do that, because connecting over a screen, it does include a lot of efforts. So,
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
this, could you discuss your approach to budgeting, including how you allocate resources?
Yeah, absolutely. So usually when I get a hold of an event, the budget's already set,
Mhm.
right? We
Yeah.
have already come to an agreement with our client on what they're going to spend, and then we break that down and what are the goals, what do we have, what are we providing, and how does that fit in, right? Um,
Mhm.
so we can be most successful when our clients come to us with very clear purpose for their event and
Mhm.
how they're spending
Mhm.
their money on, especially on production. Um,
Yeah.
if it's just a willy-nilly, we've got this, we just want a show. We want it to be flashy. We've got this presenter on stage. It takes a lot of extra time and it's not clear and there leaves a lot of room for interpretation and you don't get a clear picture of what's trying to be accomplished. If you can come
Yeah.
to us and say, hey, we really need to create a creative space that fosters communication and really pulls people into conversations just both inside the ballroom and outside the ballroom, how can we do that? That is a
Yeah.
very clear goal that
Mhm.
that doesn't tell us that, hey, we need an upstage and downstage truss, we need 27 lights, we need 5 speakers on us each side. Like, you're not giving us that information. We can come
Yeah.
up with that. We can tell you what that needs to be, right? Because a
Yeah.
lot of that is determined by the space and how many
Yeah.
seats you need in the room. Um,
Mhm.
but we can really create an experience for you if we know what experience you're trying to provide for your audience.
Mhm. Of
Um,
course.
and then being able to communicate that budget up front is very helpful. I know it sounds, um, it's, I guess old school knowledge would say don't give them your budget and let them fight for it. But
Mhm.
in this age, I think you're going to find you're more successful, and especially luxury brands in the AV space are going to be more effective if you can give them a budget, because we can then put our best foot forward the first time.
Yes.
We don't have to play that guessing game, right? And that doesn't do anybody any service because, you know, we all know what a speaker is. We all know what lights are. Um,
Yeah.
but it gives you an opportunity to be creative when you actually have a set number in mind, right? And you can self-select, right? You may find
Surely.
somebody that's like, hey, that budget just doesn't work for us, and we're not going to waste your time. And
Yeah.
that's fine. I think that's really helpful. I mean, at least when I was working with planners and in a production capacity directly for a conference, um,
Mhm.
I was very thankful not to spend the extra 2 hours on phone calls going through RFP just to find out that they were, $300,000 over our budget. you know,
Yeah.
so being up front, right, is will save
Yeah.
everybody time and headache, right?
Yeah. Of course, that's quite important. So, the design and layout of an event space can significantly impact attendee experience. As you said, that while we are choosing a venue, we should bring in the producer first. So, how can we as event organizers approach the event design to create an inviting environment?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, some of my favorite events have been ones that aren't so packed full of content. Um, they've been very curated, very careful about the time that they're spending. I think what we crave as human beings now
Yeah.
is connection and creative spaces, right? Places
Hmm.
that foster communication, foster conversation, and
Yeah.
spark creativity. So taking opportunity, and that doesn't have to be like Salesforce spending, billions of dollars on their event to create all
Yeah.
those fancy, fanciful locations. But you can
Mhm.
take some of that design uh, ideas into your event and say, okay, how do I take a corner of my event space and create a place for people to sit and have conversations? How do I design our program so that we're not just ramming the day full of content that people have to be in, right? Let's give
Yeah.
white space. our schedule so that people have time to network organically, have those conversations that they came to the event in the first place. And it
Yeah.
really in your marketing too is being able to say, hey, we're a place that fosters communication and ideas and networking and all of those fun things that really are
Mm-hmm.
why we go to events, right?
Yeah.
Um, you know, unless you're Taylor Swift, I'm not the content's important, but it's not the main reason I'm there, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I do want to hear from thought leaders. I do want to get tips and tricks to
New
help me do my
ideas.
job.
Yeah.
But I also want time to connect with people, find people that are struggling with the same things that I'm struggling with, have communication with people that can help me spark the next idea to move forward in my career or with the thing that's in front of me. And if you don't give people time and space to do that, then you're not serving them well. Um,
Yeah.
and that can be as simple as some couches in a corner. It can be a
Yeah.
full room that you've set up
Yeah.
for conversations. I love a great band and or a DJ as much as the next guy, but if that's the only time is your networking time, is also your band and dancing time, that's not really good solid networking, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to network shouting over the latest hip hop songs.
Mm-hmm.
If I wanted to go to a club, I'd go to a club. There is time and space for parties and for that
Mm-hmm.
dancing and that kind of social connection. That's absolutely appropriate. But we also need to make space for the networking and the
So you
conversations that
would
happen
say
in that.
that networking is definitely still the key. Like we have always learned that events are a key point where networking happens, and it's a key part for marketing. As a networking, if making networking happen. So
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
really important as an essence of the event, we would say. So, with this, Nate, would you consider the most rewarding aspect of event production? And how do you measure the success of an event beyond just logistical execution?
Personally, my favorite part of an event and what I find most rewarding are the people that I meet and work with there.
Mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm,
you know, I when I'm on site, I'm leading the crews to make sure that we execute what we promised our clients, right? But I'm also there to make sure that they're served well. I'm a firm believer that if we take care of our crew and our staff really well, they're going to take care of our clients. And I think that
yeah.
goes to our clients as well. When our clients are taking care of us and their staff and they're meeting our human needs, and showing that they care and that they're actually thinking of us, that they're thankful for what we're providing. The level of service that you get from us, our crew, just naturally goes up a step. Not because we're not providing good service to begin with, but knowing someone is invested in you as a human just makes you want to go that much further for them whenever
Yeah.
you can, right? We
Yeah.
want to we'll put in that extra time. We'll make that extra change. We're going to take that next thing with a better attitude. Um,
Mm-hmm.
just because you looked us in the eye, you learned our name, you made sure that we had time to eat and drink and take care of our human needs, and you recognize that. And I think if you do that for your staff, your crew, the venue staff, um, you're that one change. If you change that in the way you handle your events on site, it will pay more dividends than you think it will. I think you'll be really surprised when we treat people with
Nice.
incredible
Mm-hmm.
hospitality. Um, it makes them want to go do that for your guests
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So being able to
That's
see people develop them and watch them be creative and do what they are passionate about is really, really rewarding for me.
Yeah.
And then to get to
No,
have
no
those
doubt.
conversations with people outside of my little bubble, that's fantastic. That just
Yeah.
is the cherry on top.
Yes, yes, of course. Totally agreed. Totally agreed. And you've mentioned this quite enough in our talk that, even when we were backstage, you said that it's very important that people should be treated nicely. And, that
Mhm.
is definitely going to motivate them to work better. And yes, of course, everybody doesn't work for money. Even if you've been paid so much and you're not being treated nicely, it's not going to be uh,
Yeah.
any fun. And even for events, maybe the ticket cost us so much, and you're expecting so much out of it, and you don't get the best of the hospitality. It's not going to be great. So we are going to
Yeah.
keep that point from Nate. Definitely, the listeners are going to see that it's very important that you network, because after COVID we have learned the importance of how physically meeting and knowing each other, getting out of your house is a very, very important thing. Being caged was really
Mhm.
bad. So thank you again for mentioning that again, and how privileged we are that we're out of that zone and we're all safe, and we get this chance now. Thank you again, Nate. This was really important message that you have shared with us through your talk, and I think that's going to be really something we look forward and have gratitude for. Thank you again, Nate, for joining in. Thank you, everyone, for watching us, and we'll be coming up with new episodes very soon. Any final thoughts, Nate?
Just that we have an incredible privilege to be
Hmm.
in an industry where we get to show the world how to treat people. We
Hmm.
do hospitality for a living, whether you
Yeah.
are in the hotel, you're sweeping trash, pushing buttons backstage, or greeting guests at registration. We all are a part of providing people with a space to be treated well, like humans, to meet
Hmm.
needs that go beyond
Hmm.
just providing information to people. It is an incredible privilege and an honor to be part of our industry, and we shouldn't forget it. So I
Yeah.
hope you guys go out there and create amazing experiences for people.
Thank you. Thank you again, Nate. Thank you for watching, everyone. And we'd like to close now.